right, good evening and welcome to this Cascadia Daily News Election Forum. I'm Dean Wright. My colleague Ron Judd and I will be moderating this event tonight. Before I go on, I have to first do the legalities here and point out the emergency exits, one of which is right over there where you came in, to your right, my left. The other is right here. And we ask that you use this one only in the case of an emergency, because who knows what's back there. So tonight, we will be hearing from candidates running for Bellingham City Council. So why are we here? Political discourse in this country has become more polarized and vitriolic than in the memory of anyone in this room. A New York Times poll last week found that just a third of Americans have faith in the ability of government to solve problems. A third. It's down 20 points in the last 5 years. And as the government shutdown drags on now into its second week, it's easy to see why people feel that way. Sometimes it seems that in Washington, and that's the other Washington I'm talking about, there's no real debate, just shouting at each other and past each other. And the idea of good faith negotiations seems, I don't know, naive. It's easy to lose hope. But we don't live in the other Washington. We live here in Bellingham, in Cascadia. And we're blessed with a more functional and civil discourse. And we're blessed with office holders and candidates who believe in the ability of government to solve problems. And they believe in the power and wisdom of voters, and they're dedicated to that more civil discourse. That's what this evening's about. While the candidates you'll meet have some sharp disagreements, we believe this discussion will generate more light than heat. And that's why we at Cascadia Daily News are sponsoring this event and others, and why we've held and will hold other town hall events designed to bring the community together and have some civil discourse. Because even if we lose faith in the other Washington to face up to our problems, here in Bellingham and the Cascadia region, we believe, we know that we can make a difference. And that's why a well-informed electorate is so important. It's what our election coverage is all about. And it's a reminder of the importance of a functional and vital local media. Because when local journalism fails, democracy begins to fail. Now, a word about the process tonight. I'm going to introduce the candidates, who will each give a short opening statement. Then our executive editor, Ron Judd, will be introduced and lead a discussion with the candidates, which will be unscripted and as organic as possible. And you'll have a chance to ask questions. Now, as we've done at previous forums, we're using a tool called Slido, love that name, to manage audience questions. Then you can enter your question and submit it. And my colleague Annie Todd is monitoring the questions for repetition and relevance. She'll surface them to me, and I'll get to as many as possible. And we'll take a short break about halfway through the program. Now, let's meet the candidates for Bellingham City Council. First, from Ward 6, please welcome City Councilor Michael Lilliquist.
I'm a current city council member and hoping that you will re-elect me to continue that job. I want to actually start by responding to some of these comments. What you're doing here tonight is an affirmation of democracy, and I do believe that government has the power to do good in our lives, because self-government of ourselves is ourselves. It's not some outside entity. I am one of you. We are all together. We're working together to create a better Bellingham for all of us. I have a reputation. I've earned a reputation for hard work, for openness, for engagement, for listening to others, and for bringing results. Results on housing, results on criminal justice reform, results on the environment. results across a long spectrum of issues. But our work is not done. We still have enormous challenges, and no one in this job should be sitting still. So if you're looking for a status quo candidate, I'm not it. I don't think anyone up here wants to sit on our laurels. We have serious challenges before us. I look forward to your questions, and I look forward to this discussion tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Now, please welcome Michael's opponent in Ward 6, Andrew Redding.
Good evening. Oh my God, that's loud. Yeah, I'm Andrew Redding. I'm currently a Charter Review Commissioner for the south part of Bellingham. And, you know, I'd like to follow up on what you said by pointing out that we have just concluded the work of that commission, 8 Democrats, 7 Republicans, and every one of the 12 proposals that we've put on the ballot for you to consider are bipartisan. We worked across party lines. I think that's a very important thing in the current context. Second, I would want to explain why it is I'm running for office. First of all, I want, in this period of unprecedented assault on our civil liberties, I want a Bellingham that is welcoming to everybody, to every single individual. I myself was born abroad. I was raised abroad, speaking a different language than I do today. I came out as a gay person in a very conservative Florida city where I was persecuted for that, where I experienced hatred, discrimination, death threats. So I know what it's like to be persecuted. And I've spent my entire professional career as an advocate for democracy and human rights, both in the United States and in other countries, particularly Central America and Latin America more generally, but Mexico. And so I'm coming at this from wanting to make sure that, first of all, we are absolutely firm in protecting every one of our residents here in Bellingham. Second reason I'm running, we need a Bellingham that is more affordable. We are the 4th most unaffordable city in America for housing at this point. And so I'm proposing, I won't go into detail now, but I am proposing both that we do some simplification of our zoning on the one hand, and also set up revolving loan funds to address the problems head on at scale. Also, I'm the one who, through Community First Whatcom, a couple of years ago, proposed the $2 increase in the minimum wage that went to initiative and was adopted by the voters and provides another $4,000 a year in the pockets of the people who earn the least in Bellingham to be able to pay for their basic needs. The third reason I'm running is because I want a Bellingham that is climate resilient. That's absolutely critical at this point. I myself have never owned a motor vehicle on purpose because I knew this was coming. As somebody trained in the natural sciences, I knew that we were going to have this problem, and I didn't want to be contributing to it. So part of what I'm proposing as well, and that's part of why I'm proposing what's called the SMART code, which is a climate-informed code to replace the existing code that discourages sprawl and encourages infill to make it possible to have leafy green neighborhoods where you can walk to work, to school, to businesses without having to use a motor car every time. We've got to be serious about making mode shift.
And we'll get into details later on that, Andrew.
Okay. Right. So basically, that's my pitch.
Thank you, Andrew. Now let's move to Ward 4, and please welcome Carrie Burnside.
Hello, everyone. My name is Carrie Burnside. I am a former Seahome graduate, class of 1990. Go Mariners. I want to thank everyone for being here this evening, and I especially want to thank you as a former lieutenant with the Whatcom County Fire District number 8. and the safety officer, I love that you point out where the emergency exits are. Not enough people pay attention to the important details. So thank you for that. As I've been preparing for this evening, I have been trying to cram 40 years of experience into about 60 seconds of allotted time. And I've found that I've been walking around talking to myself, and I'm really animated when I'm talking. So I really appreciate being able to have an actual audience to speak to instead of just walking around talking to myself and having all that, while I'm door knocking, have people kind of wondering, is she okay? Again, my name's Carrie Burnside. I'm running for City Council, Ward 4. And I have a lot of experience, and I encourage you to go to my website, carrieforbellingham.com. Also check out Vote 411. That's a really good resource for all the candidates. And then also Ballotpedia is another really good resource for all the candidates, and you can get a lot more information there. But Bellingham is definitely at a crossroads, and the reason I'm running for City Council is I want to pull my background of process improvement, change management, and community organizing, bring those to Bellingham and help more directly. We have a $10 million budget deficit. We have a lack of living wage jobs. We have seniors that are living on fixed incomes that make less than minimum wage. And so they are actually the lowest earning income earners without the ability to increase their income. We also have issue with Post Point. We have to decide what we're going to do about the jail. We have people in our community that don't feel safe. We have a serious crisis level lack of affordable housing. And there's so much more that we can be doing. We also have environmental issues that we need to become more serious about. Lake Whatcom is our only source of drinking water, and we've become complacent. And that is one of the main reasons why I'm running, is that it is still listed on the Department of Ecology's 303D list, and we have done a lot of work in restoring Lake Whatcom, but we still have people that don't understand what that means, that we're on a restoration plan, and we are not doing everything that we can be doing. And we know that because every year we get the reports and it shows we are not making the progress that we need to be making. Again, our only source of drinking water. So in interest of time, I'm gonna conclude there. We'll get to ask more questions. Thank you for being here. And together, I know Bellingham can face these challenges. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. Now, please welcome Carrie's opponent, the incumbent in Ward 4, Councilor Skip Williams.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you for taking time out of your weekend to be here. I have lived in Bellingham for 34 years. I moved up here from the deep south, Tacoma, and I fell in love with this city, and I've been here ever since. One of the things, and for my friends that are here that know me, one of the things that's been instilled in me since I was a child and raised in the village of Tacoma by some real serious elders is that I have to use my skills and my talents to improve people's lives. That's why I became a teacher, a public school teacher. That's why, after 15 years of that, I worked with the Washington Education Association to support my profession. And that's why I've done a lot of work in all of the communities that I've lived in to make life better. And that's what I vow to continue doing if I'm reelected. And I will say this: when the current and past elected officials here 4 years ago asked me to seek out this, I never aspired to really do this. And I said, At the time, I said, you know, I don't have all the answers to these questions and all these issues. And they said, you don't have to have all the answers. You know how to bring people together, to sit down and work with them and go through all of the research and the information to get to the right answer that everybody can support. And that's why we're asking you to run. And that's why I'm running again to be city councilor from Ward 4. So I would appreciate your support in November, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Skip. Now let's move on to Ward 2 and welcome Leah Wainman.
I'm Leah Wainman. I'm running to represent Ward 2 on the Bellingham City Council. I'm an epidemiologist. I work in the governmental public health system at the State Department of Health. My husband and I were raising our 2 little girls here in Bellingham. Bellingham's the same town where their great-grandparents grew up and fell in love. And I'm a first-time candidate, but I've been in public service for 17 years, and I'm running to put the public back into public service. Let's be real, right here now in Bellingham, working families are being crushed by inflation, rising cost, and stagnant wages. For me, this election cycle isn't just about how do we build more housing to address affordability. It is much deeper than that. The housing crisis is a symptom of our broken systems. And we see the impacts all across our community. We see it in increased rates of homelessness. We see it in childhood instability. We see it in increased climate impacts because we don't have workforce housing and people have to move further and further out and commute to work. These issues, they create instability for everyone. And if we want to change the systems, we need to change the leadership. I'm running to advance true workforce housing in Bellingham. I'm running because I think that we need to bring community voice to the priorities and the decision-making process on City Council. I know that together we can fix these issues in our systems and that we can build a Bellingham that we all deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Leah. And now please welcome Leah's opponent, the incumbent, Councilor Holly Huffman.
Thank you so much for being here. I'm Holly Huffman. I am your current Ward 2 Council representative. I have been on council for almost 6 years now. So I am a downtown business owner. I've owned a business downtown for about 15 years. I am a graduate of Western. I have a degree in sociology. I won't tell you how long ago I graduated, but I'm also a parent of 2 young children and a musician. There are a couple of us in politics that are musicians as well. But I first ran 6 years ago for council because in my little bubble of community at the time, the arts and music community, I was seeing a lot of people that were struggling to find housing. It was clearly becoming really difficult to find available housing, let alone affordable housing that was available. And so for me, this was a big concern because I stayed in Bellingham because I fell in love with the music and arts community. And to me, Bellingham is music and arts. It's a big part of our identity. And so I wanted to lend my hand to help solving this problem. I didn't want all of these folks to move away. So I also wanted to represent the arts and music community on council. We had Terry Borneman at the time, and he decided not to run again. He was always a great advocate for us, and I thought that that was really a really important voice on council that I could be. So my priorities haven't changed. Housing is clearly still at the center of most of the challenges that we face, and this is something that we absolutely need to tackle. We need to build enough housing to catch up and keep up with our population growth. It's imperative in our city that everybody that wants to live here can not only find housing that meets their needs, but that it's also within their budget. So I would like to continue doing that work, and I hope that you will consider voting for me this November. Thank you.
Thanks, Holly, and thanks to all of you for your opening statements. Now to lead tonight's discussion, we're joined by my friend and colleague, Cascadia Daily News Executive Editor, Ron Judd.
Are we ready? Is this on? Yes. Oh, very good. Thanks. It's good to be here and good to see so many faces here. Thanks, especially to all the candidates for being here. I want to say we think it takes an extra degree of courage to be a candidate for anything these days. And seriously, I really appreciate that and the fact that you guys are here and open to the public. I also want to thank Seahome, Go Mariners, and the Bellingham School District for this great space that we're using tonight. And the staff and some of our journalists from the Cascadia Daily News are here tonight. Raise your hand if you're here from CDN. Thank you for being here. And our event organizers outside, a big thanks to Bree and Alana for putting on this event and making it work. So we hope it's going to continue to set a pattern for what we're doing at CDN. And I especially want to thank everybody here, especially those of you who are subscribers to CDN who make our work possible. You can pat yourselves on the back for that. It means everything to us, and we literally couldn't do it without you. Well, we could, but it wouldn't be nearly as much fun talking to ourselves. Can I just see from a show of hands how many of you folks were here last week for the County Council Forum? Okay, a lot. I'm not going to ask County Council questions, but I'm hoping I can pick some different subjects tonight, even though there's a lot of crossover between the two. By the way, we do have a couple of musicians on the stage tonight, and there were 2 musicians last week. And I just want the rest of you to know that it's okay if you're not a musician. We're not gonna hold that against you. Although Michael was kind of spinning up some tunes backstage earlier. But we all got through that, and it was a good opener. But anyway, thanks for everybody. And the way we're going to do this tonight is, I hope that we try to avoid the sort of staid, you have 2 minutes answers thing where there's a clock counting down the whole time you're talking. So by the time you're done, like this, like the guy in the car commercial. So, but I know that you folks are all well trained now, having been through the candidate forums wars, to kind of know what 2 minutes is. So let's try to keep it, close to that. We don't want to have to cut anybody off, but we will if we have to. So quick opening. I'm going to try to get some serious issues questions here in the first hour, and in our second hour, there will be a lightning round that there's no way you can prepare for. So don't worry about that. But the big issues will come heavy and fast, starting right now. My first question is, and I want to just go down the row, probably starting at the far end, given the state of the nation and everything that we're living through these days, why in God's name do you want to serve on a public council or serve and continue to serve as an elected official? Just a quick answer from everybody, starting with Holly.
A quick one. Oh, gosh. Well, I love a challenge, I guess. I like to jump in head first to do something and choose the hardest way to do it. I opened a bar. I decided to open a live music venue, which is probably the most difficult way to have a bar and make any money. And so I think I love a good challenge. I knew that I could do it, and I get a lot of satisfaction in seeing great ideas that seem impossible come to fruition, and I want to keep being part of that.
Okay, that's a good answer. Leah?
A good, bad answer response?
Sure. Good or bad?
Let's see, that is a very good question, and I appreciate you asking it. I would say is that I decided to run for office in December of 2024 when I felt that our democracy was failing at the national level. And I think there's nothing truer than anybody can do to reinforce their democracy than to run for office for a seat that's been uncontested. I think that for me, it is important to bring community voice to the decision-making process. Things like our budget should have community input from the very beginning. Things like where we develop and how we develop should be driven by community members and residents, and bring in the diversity of folks, not just those who have the time and the energy and the money to advocate for themselves, but everyone into the conversation. And so for me, it's really just like, I'm trying to do my part to keep democracy afloat in these very challenging times.
Very good. Skip?
Well, as I said before, my whole life has been one of public service in one form or the other. And when I was asked to do this for the first 4 years, I felt that this was the ultimate service that I could give to my community, was sitting on the city council. And I heard a wise man say once, there's 3 kinds of politicians in the world. There's Republicans, Democrats, and city councilmen. And that city councilmen are problem solvers. And they were actually speaking of local elected office. So I would also include mayors in that comment. To me, I am devoted to figuring out the answers and getting to the bottom of these problems that we're facing with housing, with equity issues, with the environment, and trying to find those solutions that work, that include you, our citizens, in the development of those. And sometimes the answers don't come in a way that everybody likes, but at least I would work and hope that at the end everybody understands why things end up being the way they are in terms of answering some of these problems. And that's work that I enjoy. I have done it my whole life, and I want to keep continuing doing it.
Thanks, Skip. Carrie?
Thank you. I also, from the very young age, have always been community active, beginning at 8 years old. I've been really effective at it. In middle school, I got the first dance, organized the students, worked with the teachers, got the first dance to happen at Walker Middle School. When I got to Seaholm, wasn't this beautiful school that it is today. I was a competitive swimmer, and we had to share the YMCA pool that's too short, only 4 lanes, and we had 2 high schools sharing it. So I advocated for Arnie Hanna. Spent my weekends outdoor knocking and talking with parents and adults and getting people to understand the necessity of having better civic facilities for our community. I went on and became a volunteer firefighter. As everywhere I've gone, like it or not, I become a leader, and I am a natural bridge builder. I am able to work with people who don't share the same political views that I do, and able to come to consensus. And really, I'm good at building teams, but also getting the buy-in and support so people want to be a part of what I'm doing. I also was asked to run for city council, given my effectiveness in being able to influence policy at the local level, but also at the state level. And I was just getting my foot in at the national level with the FCC, and then, well, you all know what happened. So I had to shift gears and start looking at what can I do more here. And in the Ward 4, our ward doesn't have active neighborhood associations. So to say you're a community builder and don't have active neighborhood associations, that's an indicator that there's room for improvement there. I got the Silver Beach Neighborhood Association going again. I am a doer instead of a talker, and there's so much that can be done and needs to be done, and I really want to bring the community in on it more. I talk to so many people that want to be a part of change, but hit those roadblocks. So their council members are not responsive. They don't know how to plug in. So I want to bring that bridge builder, effective change management, process improvement person into city council and really get to the heart of the issues and make lasting change. And I see it's time to stop. So thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. Andrew, you've been a doer and a talker, and why do you want to bring those skills to the City Council?
Yes, primarily as a doer. As chair of the Wacom Democrats for 6 years, something I never thought I would do. I thought I'd be terrible at it. And instead, I found that I had those kinds of talents, executive talents I never thought I had. Kind of backed into it from being a vice chair. But in 6 years, when you think of what we accomplished, you know, flipping a county from purple to blue, getting the first black progressive sheriff, getting the 42nd LD flipped in its entirety from 3 Republicans to 3 Democrats, which had huge effects in the state legislature, and we can see that in all the progressive legislation we've gotten here. Now, that's the kind of stuff that makes you realize this is really worth it when stuff like that happens. And each year I told myself, you know, I'm not going to do this again if I don't succeed with the elections that year. And we succeeded all 6 years. Last year, we won everything. And not only that, but we even got a vote for Kamala that was higher than the vote for Joe Biden 4 years earlier. How many counties in America can claim that? And so that was very exciting. And also we did that in large measure by bringing youth in. We had the highest youth, we developed the highest youth turnout of any county in the state, and it's not close. And so that was a real key in flipping these key races and making possible this kind of thing. So then about 3 years ago, when Kathy Kirschner voted to place the Healthy Children's Fund on the ballot, I thought, oh, that's pretty brave for a Republican to do. So I sent her an email saying, hey, you know, you were chair of the Republicans when I became chair of the Democrats. Would you like to meet? We've never met. Within 5 minutes, she said, yes, let's meet, Daisy Cafe downtown. We met down there. After an hour, she cocks her head at me and she says, you know what? I don't dislike you. And you know what? We've met every month since then for 3.5 years. And last year, that we collaborated in co-sponsoring a ballot measure, a charter amendment, to make it so that nobody could hold 2 elected offices at once. And that passed with 84%, totally bipartisan. So that got me really excited, realizing part of the problem here is we're no longer talking to each other. And it's very important that we start having those conversations rather than always be in the bubbles. That's what has created our national nightmare. And so that has been one of the most exciting things for me, and continuing that on the Charter Review Commission has been extremely exciting. But now also the other thing I started doing, Dan Dunn invited me 3 years ago also to meet with builders in town. And no Democratic chair had ever done that, and talking to the business community. And it made me realize why we're having all the problems with construction here, things I'd never realized before. And it also made me realize why businesses are having so much trouble getting started and staying in business here. And that has affected our wages. We don't have high enough wages here. It's the other half of the equation of affordability.
We're gonna get to that in a minute. Thank
Pardon
you.
me?
Thank you. We're going to get to that issue in a minute.
Okay.
Thanks. Michael.
Yeah, so the question is, why would I run for city council at a time like this? I'm an accidental politician in the sense that I never thought about doing this. But after we moved to Bellingham, I started becoming involved in the community, PTA, neighborhood associations, then joining nonprofit boards and commissions. And I just sort of realized that there was an important way that I could contribute to the community, and I think it brought out what I think Skip was referring to, problem solvers. You find that you're a problem solver and there are problems to solve, and so when people notice that, they say, well, you should do this, you should do that. That's how I first started running for city council, and that's what's rewarding about it. I have a model in my mind, it's a ratchet. A ratchet is a mechanism that clicks forward and doesn't go backwards. That's what I work for in progress. Many changes over many years making our community better. Some people say that, you know, this is a thankless job. It's actually not a thankless job. I get thanked in the grocery store. I got thanked at the door several times today as I'm going door to door. people do actually appreciate the fact that their leaders are trying to make Bellingham a better place. And I think they do differentiate between what's going on here locally and what goes on nationally. It's just a more practical, more solution-oriented. So that's a really good part of the job that keeps me going.
Great, thank you, everybody. Those are good answers and good reasons. And no one's ever asked me to run for city council, just saying. And so I feel free to ask the hard questions now. I've been told that housing is an issue in this election by about 1 million times. And so I heard some of those pleas. And I want everybody to talk about this in a little bit different way. And I guess I would start with specifically maybe Skip and Carrie want to comment on this question. And I asked a version of this question last week. Sorry if you were here. It's a little bit, it's relevant, I think, to both government bodies. The question is, many of the solutions that are obvious ways that government can affect affordability involve density, which involves zoning and involves neighborhood character and all these issues we love to try to discuss and frame and agree on at some points. That really, I think, what I see in this community through letters and through people and our interactions at forums is that I think most people get that means everybody's got to scooch over a little bit, make room for other people that are coming in here. And there are different degrees of tolerances of that, as I'm sure you have all seen. So my question is and maybe Skip, you can take this on first, and then Carrie, does that pressure in your mind place an undue burden on seniors and people that have owned homes for a long time and are open to change, but not like radical change? And is that fair? And how do you make it more fair for everybody?
Well, seeing as how I am a person that's owned my house for 34 years, but I don't see that the impact of what we're having to deal with as being unfair. To me, it wouldn't be unfair to me. What I see as being unfair is the piece of people can't afford to buy a house here. And that because of that, we have an undue population that cannot afford to live here. And that has to be solved. And the one way to solve it is to create housing at all levels, at all single family, multifamily, tiny villages, whatever, to be able to meet that need and to develop policies that are going to support that. And we are on the way to doing that in a number of ways. And some of which is changing the zoning codes so that we are now going, the concept is changing it from having 25 different codes that have no relationship to each other, and I believe it's 480 sub-area zones, to something that's more consistent citywide, that makes it easier to get permitted, to make it easier to have consistency and equity throughout our city, and to make it, when I say easier, having things in place like pre-approved designs, so that if I choose one of these housing forms that we have, ADUs, single family, whatever, if it's a pre-approved form, it makes the permitting process move faster and less expensive. Those are the things that we're moving towards, and it's being done, I believe, in a way from our planning director, and the rest of us are taking a broader view of it, meaning our history is our history. But we need to think forward. We don't need to think we need to preserve 100% of this, but we need to address the issues that past has given us in a way that supports the development to bring people that are moving here and give them the housing that they can afford. And that is a process that I am totally supportive of and looking forward to help implement.
Thank you, Skip. Carrie, definitely some opportunities for that natural bridge building here with this issue. What's your take on that question?
Yes, so big reason for why I'm running is people are approaching this. We have two things that are happening. We have a comp plan that's long-term planning, and then we have a housing affordability crisis, which I'm going to come back to because I want to mention some of the things that Skip pointed out. But people are really confused on this. But your question was actually, how do people adapt to the change of infill? So to answer your question, I actually talked to someone today that has an example of what I thought was successful infill. So I was talking to their family. It was a traditional single-family home that had a double lot, and on the double lot they had put a smaller, they'd split the lot, and so they had a home in front and then they had a home in back. And so I was like, oh, this is exciting. I'm seeing where this is coming into play. We're getting this infill, and they shared something I hadn't thought about, the conflict it caused when they moved in and the lack of parking. So they now park on their front lawn, and the neighbors don't like how that looks, but there's nowhere else to park. If they park on the street, they have neighbors that come over and are expressing their extreme dislike. You're not welcome in the neighborhood. Look what you're doing. You're ruining our neighborhood. So people handle change in different ways. So I have not seen where the city's taking that into account. And one of the things that I do is I'm trained as a mediator and have used that I worked for Alcoa, largest aluminum company in the world. And I did the contract negotiations, amongst a lot of different things. But where I found a lot of success in helping people adapt to change was actually using those skills for mediation and helping ease people through. If you take the approach of the beatings will continue until morale improves, that just doesn't work, and it doesn't help people adapt to change. And I'm not seeing, we do need a change. And I'm not seeing where the city is taking the necessary pieces that help people adapt and come along with it. That's not being utilized. I do want to talk about, because this was brought up, so we have a few things that are happening, and we've lumped serious issues under the umbrella of housing. We have a comp plan, 20-year plan, and that's long-range planning where the city makes it possible to build housing. They don't build the housing. So when people are talking about the improvements that they're making, will not bring any actual units online. We have a housing crisis that we are actively living in, and it's getting worse. Bellingham is the most expensive city for renters in the state of Washington, and it is getting worse. Every lease renewal, it's getting worse. We're seeing seniors and those on a fixed income going directly from having housing to being unhoused. We have people living and working here that are experiencing homelessness. We need to plan long range, but we also need to address the immediate needs. And that's why I'm running, is because no one's having those conversations and talking about what we can and need to do right now to stabilize people so that they're not losing their housing, better utilize the resources that we have to help take the existing housing and make it affordable. There's also state laws that change that a lot of people that you're most likely not aware of. House Bill 1220 makes it a requirement that we plan for all income levels, and that's what Skip was talking about. House Bill 1110 makes it possible to have more infill and use the space better. So by law, state mandate is requiring us to look at things like smart code and different ways that we better utilize and plan for long-range planning. Again, makes it possible, doesn't deliver the housing we need. And we do need to increase supply, but we need to dramatically increase supply in the 50% and below AMI. That's $53,000 a year and less. Think about how many people make $53,000 a year that are not our poorest of the poor. But based on how expensive it is to live here, they are now considered poor. So we have to start really addressing the immediate needs, keeping people housed, having more land trusts, having more opportunities to get into home ownership, but keeping people housed. And then that's the piece that why I'm running is that I have tried working with my council members, trying to get fixes done that could be done, that are not being done. And so I want to get in and help get the policy that shores up the loopholes that cause people to lose their housing at no fault of their own, and also open up those pathways into stable, safe housing. We have a problem, a known problem for over a decade, that we have unsafe rentals.
Okay,
There's
we're
no
gonna
excuse
get to
not
that
have it
also
done.
in a minute.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, good answer. Michael and Andrew, you guys have obviously both put a lot of research and have experience with this issue, and I'm going to ask you the question from a little bit different angle. How does your approach, Michael, differ most dramatically from your opponent to solving this problem? And then we'll follow up with Andrew.
I'd say the biggest difference is really a matter of degree and proportion. We're not as far apart, but I think that there's a range of housing issues and each of them needs its own solution. And my concern is that Andrew's solution is aimed at one part of the problem, not the others as much. So it's a matter of emphasis. So let me kind of explain what I mean. We do need a thriving housing market, and we do need to remove the barriers to development. And so the city has already taken steps. We have actually removed the barriers we used to have in residential areas. So middle housing is now allowed by right. You referred earlier the reference to simplifying our code. Rather than having hundreds of residential codes, we now have given direction to simplify those into 3 residential areas: low density, high density, medium density. Simplification, make it easier for people to build, builders to build, more capacity becoming in the private market. But the private market builds what's profitable to build and easy to finance. We know what that is. They're really good homes, but they're not homes that are affordable to most people. We know in some cities where they have removed the zoning restrictions, like Bellingham has just done, there is an increase in housing production, 0.8% increase, which may sound small, but year after year, that's more housing and that's good. But what that same study showed in Minneapolis is that none of that housing was below the average. It wasn't affordable housing. Most people couldn't afford that, and there was no effect on the production of lower rent housing. So we have another problem, which is the workforce housing we referred to earlier. We need a different set of solutions to build that. Another problem we have is the lowest income. And we actually have solutions for that. I campaigned to create the Bellingham Home Fund. Not only that measure, but in others, we put these together. So with the Home Fund, we create seed money to go into projects to create permanent affordable housing. And that's leveraged 8 to 1. And we've created hundreds of permanently affordable housing units in Bellingham every year. Some of that housing is people who are homeless upon entry, right out of homelessness into housing. There's a project going in right now near Bellis Fair Mall. That's one of the examples. So we are building this kind of affordable housing. We also have created tax incentives for more development in urban villages. We have cut impact fees for affordable housing. We have tools that create some kinds of housing. But again, the workforce housing puzzle piece is the thing I think we need to work on. So I think that the emphasis or the difference between myself and my opponent is I've heard him say repeatedly that the only solution to our affordable crisis is through the market rate housing. I don't think that's true. I think when Andrew talks about it in detail, I think he will probably want to back that off, because there are more solutions, particularly workforce housing. I'm looking at solutions that involve social housing or public development authorities or community equity programs. We need other forms of creating housing. Mr. Redding has said he's proposing a revolving loan fund to borrow public monies. I've talked to the county treasurer about that, and right now what he's talking about is not allowed under state law, and that would need to be changed. But if it was changed, we would have a pool for more money. So I do think that there's an affordability problem for workforce housing. The market will solve part of our problem. We have low-income housing and the other. It's that middle piece that I think we need to have more solutions on.
Great, thank you. And Andrew, how does your approach differ most dramatically from
So first of
Michael's?
all, just as a matter of courtesy, I would appreciate it if you don't try to say what my positions are inaccurately. It's only fair for me to be able to describe my positions, and they're actually multifaceted, and you can find that out just by going to my website. Any of you can do that, and you'll see it's a multifaceted approach. And no, it has never been about just the market, not even close to being that. In fact, first I'll start with the other end of it, which is the permanently affordable housing. I love our home fund. I've been a big supporter of it, but look, we're not getting anywhere near the scale we need out of that. And it's very easy to say, well, that's the fault of the state and of the federal government for not providing us with more under that formula. But the reality is, we're just not scaling that to where we need. These are all good things, but they're being done in little quantities. And meanwhile, what's happened from last year? Last year, we were the 14th most unaffordable small city in America. This year, we're the most unaffordable small city in America. We're going in the wrong direction, despite these little steps, right, in the right direction. The problem with incrementalism is when the market forces are driving so hard in the other direction is you can't keep up with them. That's why homelessness is going up as well. We are not stepping up to the scale of the problem. So the reason I'm proposing using, in particular, I'm proposing duplicating what Montgomery County, Maryland has done with a $100 million revolving fund for permanently affordable housing that does not require federal funds we're not going to get in the next 3.5 years. And it does not require state funds, and actually uses the county's own, their bank reserves and so forth as the basis for doing that. And we would have the capacity to do the same thing here. Between the city and the county, there's $1 billion in investments and bank accounts at any given time. And according to the county treasurer that you just mentioned, Steve Oliver, we could safely take 10% of that for a revolving loan fund. It would be totally safe. Yes, I realize that that would take some changes at the state level, but I've got a personal relationship with State Treasurer Mike Pelliciotti. I have the connection with State Senator Sharon Shoemake, who's endorsed my campaign, and who's the only economist in the state legislature. We have the people who can come together in a broad interface between different government agencies to make this happen here. If it can be done in Maryland, it can be done here. And 5 other states are copying that now. That's just the first part.
Let me ask you a question about that,
Yeah.
Andrew. I think that isn't, and I'll get to you in a second, Michael. You've proposed a fund of $100 million. Mm-hmm. Montgomery County, Maryland is a county of 1 million people, very wealthy tax base, different legal structure for its taxation for the state. Do you think even if that were made and able to be realistic at the state level, that it would scale to a community of our size?
Well, I think...
Has that been done anywhere?
I think there's an opportunity here. Since we are a much smaller county, we're 250,000, getting close to 250,000. If we could even get 60 million, right, or 50 million.
But you said 100, you want 100.
I like to think big, and I'm somebody who has over and over again set goals and then reached them, as Sharon Shoemake says about me. Andrew is tenacious because of my ability to do that, right? I would be not sitting behind a dais, I would be working every day of every week to bring together all the stakeholders we need to put together these kinds of things. I've already been talking with labor unions about they want to use pension funds to do this. I've been talking with the community foundation here. They heard I was interested in this. They're starting to do something of that kind with philanthropic funds. I'll get there one way or another. I'm just saying, give me that chance for 4 years and watch me do it, right?
Okay, thank you. And Michael, quickly, and then I'm going to...
Yeah, if you don't mind, I
forgotten
just
about
want
you
to
guys.
respond to one part. The question asked me to contrast my position with my opponent, and that was the reason why I attempted to describe my opponent's positions. So that was the reason.
Okay, thank you. And I'm sure we'll get back to this, but I wanted to get down to the same issue, but in another way, to Holly and Leah. Specific question about housing in our urban core, and I think many people are focused for all the right reasons on our urban core and how it needs to drive the engine of the economy around here and our cultural life and many other things. And there has been a lot of change downtown with housing in the last year. And for each of you, do you think that the pace of that change is about right, too slow, or too fast? You want to go ahead, Leah?
Well, I think it depends on who you talk to. in this city.
But what do you think?
I've been doorbelling around this city since the summer, and every neighborhood has a different take on it. Quantitatively, looking at the numbers, it's not fast enough. We don't have enough housing to meet the need, and the housing that we have is unaffordable. And so I think it will take looking at this differently and creatively. And part of it is things that folks have mentioned already, which is making sure that we are removing unnecessary bureaucratic tape so that development can happen faster. But it's also going back to the community and making sure that we're building what people want and what people can afford. And so we can build at a faster pace, of course, but we want to make sure that we're building what people want. And that means actively going out into the community and talking to people, attending neighborhood association meetings and asking them what they want, and being creative and looking at, we're building on one spectrum, we're building high-end units that are rental units, but I think like it's been set up here before, how are we creating opportunities and pathways within our urban corridor for home ownership opportunities? And I think there is a whole spectrum of creative ideas that are coming out of our own urban planning department, Western, that are looking at resolving that. Some of them being things that we've spoken to today is like taking large lots and making it easier for folks to split those large lots up and create permanent affordability on those lots. Making sure that we're supporting things like co-housing, co-ops. We have one co-op, which is a beautiful model in this town, and how can we create ordinances and support more co-ops in this town? And if that means that we look at funding creatively, I've heard that traditional funding sources and funding institutions don't really support co-ops, and if that's the case, just saying, well, we don't have the financial institutions here to make that happen. We do have public utility, we do have public institutions that can support that. We do have the ability to make ourselves the institution to support that, but that means thinking outside of the box and not doing the same thing we have been doing. It means looking to community for influence and for inspiration in that area, and I think that's one thing that's been lacking is that we have some wonderful staff, some amazing staff, but we also have some brilliant community members who are creative, who have these ideas and are coming right out of university. So how can we make sure that we do have the young professional folks who are coming out of our universities and our community colleges, opportunities for them to stay in the urban corridor? And we've been doing that, but we've been doing that one cookie cutter way, and we need to think outside of the box.
Thank you. And Holly, what's your take on this? Too fast, too slow, just right?
I think that residential units in our urban core is incredibly important, that we continue to focus on making sure that we are encouraging building downtown. We've got some great buildings downtown that have gone up within the last couple to 10 years. We've got some that are in production right now. I think that including some income restrained housing and subsidized housing, we've really relaxed restrictions in the downtown area to make building more feasible. And one of the great benefits of having more residents in our downtown is that it supports our downtown businesses as well, our downtown small businesses. And so the more activity that's downtown, the more welcoming our downtown feels, the more comfortable people feel being downtown, supporting our businesses and our employees. And so I think that it's been encouraging to see the residences that are being built, but I think our downtown can accept a lot more. And I think that there are some creative solutions with retrofitting old buildings to be residences as well. And I know that there are some challenges with building code that are being looked into, maybe some opportunities where there is code that's a little outdated and we might be able to revise, and so that some of that can be realized as well. The Dahlquist building in particular is one that I'm thinking of that has been empty for a long time. Beautiful building that once was a hotel and has commercial space on the bottom, but empty spaces above it that could be apartments. But the owners of that building haven't been able to make it work, despite their passion to do so. So I happy to see that there's progress, but would love to see a lot more.
Great, thank you.
Thanks for a great discussion. It's been very lively. It's time to take a short break. Let's take a break for 10 minutes, and when we get back, I have some audience questions that I'd like to get to. I'm clearly not going to be able to get to every question, but a lot of them sort of fall into certain categories. And one that has come up, and one that actually came up at last week's forum as well, has to do with actions from the other Washington. And the question is, what will you do, what can you do on City Council to protect community members and their rights from actions taken by ICE and other actions taken by the federal government? Let's just start at this end and begin with Holly.
Great question, really, very much on everybody's mind. And, you know, going into this year, we said there was going to be some. Let me make sure that there we go. That's me. Going into this year, I know at the city, there was a lot of worry and anticipation of what this administration was going to look like for us here at the city. Luckily, we already had some protections in place. Not only in 2017, I believe it was, the city council at that time passed an ordinance protecting our immigrant neighbors, which later, the Keep Washington Working Act was passed at the state level in 2019, which was very similar to what we had passed here as a city. And in that, law enforcement does not assist with immigration enforcement. That is not the purview of local law enforcement. They are concerned with local issues, and so there is no assistance with immigration enforcement. Not only that, in the city we have some other protections, such as unless it's a legal requirement, we do not ask for immigration status at the city, as an example. So we have that protection in place. We also, as a city, have the power to join in lawsuits, which is something that we've done. So we've joined in on a class action lawsuit against the federal government regarding HUD funding. As a city, we were told that we would not receive, or that it was under threat that we would not receive HUD funding if we didn't comply with certain requirements from the federal government regarding immigrants, abortion rights, LGBTQ plus rights. And of course, those are values that we hold deeply in the city of Bellingham, and we're not willing to compromise on those values. And so we're part of pushing back on that. And I think that's another role that we can play, being part of that resistance. But I think that as a city, we'll continue to hold our ground in not compromising on those values and being a part of the solution in any way that we have power to do so legally.
Okay, let's move down the line. Leah.
Oh, down the line. Okay. That is a very good question and such a timely one, and I really appreciate you asking it this evening. I'll start by saying I'm an epidemiologist, which means that I'm trained to use data to describe the health and well-being of a community. Our community, in my professional role, is the entire state. And so for a long time, my job has been, how can we disaggregate? How can we dive deeper into the data to show the details about who's experiencing what, who's experiencing inequities across our systems? And when this new administration came into place, something changed dramatically. What we had been doing and what we had been fighting for years had been used and turned against us, and now it's been weaponized against us. So my work this year has really been working with the Office of Equity at the state level, the governor's office, and now Office of Financial Management, which does our population estimates data, working with them to figure out a way to protect our data. One of the things about the 2021 Public Health Act was it requires local jurisdictions and states to report data to the federal government, and they're using that law that we created to ask for data about protected populations. And so we at the state need to come together and figure out how we're going to create new laws, how we're going to work against the federal government to protect vulnerable populations, because they're using the laws that we have in place now to hurt people. And there is the courts, but we're also figuring out how can we create new laws. And that's what we're doing right now. The governor released an executive order last month. And so I'll be working with the Office of Equity, Office of Financial Management to do an audit of our federal data systems across all the state agencies and look at sort of what data do we collect on vulnerable populations, marginalized community, and immigration status. We know that in our world, we are not actually allowed to collect immigration status unless it's about refugee and immigrant communities and in the data world and public health and across the state agencies. But we do collect some of that. So who's collecting that? How are we collecting that? And then how can we fight against that? Because if we get a grant from the federal government, if we get a grant from the CDC, we are required by that grant to report that data. So does that mean we don't get any more federal funding? How do we fight against that? And that's the work that's in front of us right now. I'm super inspired by the work that happened in San Francisco last year to protect reproductive health data from federal oversight. The city of San Francisco created an ordinance locally to create laws to protect their own local data. So I think there's lots of opportunities in that realm as well.
Okay, Skip.
Well, a number of things. As my colleague to the right said, we do function under the Keep Washington Working Act, so our public safety staff do not cooperate with the immigration authorities over those issues. We don't seem to now have a meeting where we're not discussing how to fight back to avoid these issues that are coming down from Washington, D.C. And I am very proud to be able to sit with a council and an administration that takes that approach. And when I say administration, I mean our administration here in Bellingham. One of the things that we did pass was an ordinance this last year protecting our transgendered community in Bellingham from undue discrimination and violence and all of those things. And one of my assignments here is also to work with the Racial Equity Commission, which is a countywide commission, and it's in its infancy, but it is now beginning to examine policies and looking at populations and how issues and discriminatory practices have affected them. And when I think of this, Bellingham is not by itself in these issues. And we can be a leader, but we have to be able to be a leader to help other municipalities in Whatcom County and the county itself to take on those issues in a way that protects the rights of everyone in Whatcom County. So, like I said before, I am very proud to be part of that, and I look forward to continuing to be part of that. So,
Carrie.
Yes, very important topic, and I'm thinking of things that haven't already been shared. I do listening sessions where I go into areas where people typically get overlooked and forgotten about. And last week, one of the participants, it really struck home that she had shared, she came, but she sat in the back And she was really uncomfortable coming, but she really wanted, she wanted to hear from the candidates to help her make a better decision. But she was actually afraid, because she's a person of color, and she was concerned that she was an immigrant, she was here legally, but those lines are really blurred. And she was concerned also for her parents, who are immigrants, also here legally. But she came, but she was very scared coming. And it really brought home how real and terrifying. I knew Lilo, who was detained and ripped out of our community. I work directly with community to community and work on supporting their efforts and look at ways to, people are not going and getting services anymore. So both as someone on hopefully when I'm elected, I'll continue doing this, but community members can help with bringing food to people who are not safe going to those services. Finding ways to make sure that people are still getting health care, because they're afraid that they're gonna go and their health, information will be used against them. On a city level, I think we can shore up a little bit more. What I keep seeing we'll have resolutions and sometimes even ordinances that have great value statements in them. But then when it comes to application, we fall short. And I'm seeing that happening with renters all the time. And a lot of our renters are immigrants, and they are individuals of color. And we say that we value diversity, equity, and inclusion, but when the rubber hits the road, our policies don't back that up. And you can use the rental registry and safety inspection program as a direct example of that. Implemented nearly a decade ago, audited in 2023, the results were shared, found that more problems than they're expecting. Work has been stalled on that. It's just not a priority. And so when people are living in unsafe conditions, and it's already, the power imbalance between a renter and a homeowner is significant. And when you add that additional level that they're afraid that if they speak up, they could also get detained and deported for no reason. So we've just added an already known problem where we're aware of it, we've studied it, we've acknowledged we have this problem with unsafe living conditions, and it's just not a priority right now. It's not percolating to the top as a priority. We've just added another layer on top of that individuals that were already concerned about reporting something to a landlord definitely aren't going to go to the city, which is the next step, and report it out of fear of real consequences. Okay. It's a serious issue, and I would say let's shore up where there's loopholes in our existing policies, really put an equity lens across them, and help each other as a community. Get to know your neighbors. Make sure they know they're safe with you. And find out, do they need something, and bring it to them. Okay.
Andrew.
We can do better.
Yeah, you'll probably recall that I mentioned earlier how significant it was that we elected the first Black and progressive sheriff in Whatcom County. Well, the election of Donnell Tanksley is absolutely critical in this regard. He's somebody who deeply believes, this is a matter of conviction for him, about not engaging with the immigration authorities, the ICE. And so there's nobody we could have more trust in than the sheriff at this point. And that's something I know from ongoing conversations with him. I'm very close with him. So I think that's something that we should realize how important that is, and that was a significant achievement. I also mentioned earlier that I'm trilingual and that I grew up abroad. So my first language was French, so and it took some work to shift to English when I came here, but my third language is Spanish. And the reason that happened was that I spent a good part of 2 decades in Central America, in Mexico, and in the Caribbean, working on democracy and human rights with local groups there, with human rights organizations, with local organizations trying to get clean elections in those countries. But then subsequently, I was hired by the first by the Department of Justice to work for their Immigration and Naturalization Service. So I'm super familiar with immigration law and also with the international treaties that are solemn obligations with regard to refugees, with regard to immigrants. I also take very seriously all the commandments in Judaism, in Christianity, and in Islam about respecting the stranger, the alien. These are fundamental moral obligations. And for me, they're ones I take very seriously. I don't see people who are, illegal aliens, I can't stand that term, okay? What are they, from another planet or something? I mean, these are other human beings, and these are people who have lived with us for ages, who are gathering our crops, who are putting on our roofs and so forth, and my God, we've got, and I think too, you know, my other country that I am a dual citizen is Belgium, the French-speaking part. I'm from the Brussels area. In Belgium, anybody who's not even a resident of the EU, who has immigrated, whether legally or not, to Belgium, after you've been a resident for 5 years, you can register with your municipality and you get the right to vote, even though you're not a citizen. And you can think about the way it transforms how people think about these people, right? And all of a sudden they have a vote and people have to consider that, right? We've got to rehumanize here. This is really critical. And we've got to make it clear this is a moral issue as well as a legal issue.
Great. Michael.
Thank you, Dean. Appreciate the question. I mean, I just want to start by saying there's something deeply wrong in my mind when people in this country are afraid of their own government. When our government is using the instruments of power against people to remove their rights, to attack them, to make them feel under threat, rather than to bring us together or promote prosperity or promote security or promote opportunity. So what's being done with federal power, I think, is the exact opposite of why we have democratic self-government. I also want to echo some earlier thoughts. Yeah, we should not give away on our community's values. Our community values, I think, are closer to the original American conception, which is we come together for our common prosperity and public good. That should still be our common values, and we do welcome the stranger, the alien among us. We are all immigrants unless you're a Native American. So, yeah, what's being done is fundamentally wrong. You heard Holly give a pretty good description of how the city is fighting back with the one tool that is available to us. We don't have the power, the might, or the authority to stop the federal government, but the courts do. If what they're doing is illegal, if what they're doing is not backed up by the facts or by the law, then they should be stopped, and the proper venue for that is in the court. And so the city is involved in both as an amicus in some law cases or as a direct petition or other to oppose the illegal actions of the Trump administration. And again, we're not opposing them because we don't like them. We're opposing them for one reason, they're wrong, but two, they're actually illegal. They're actually using the law in an upside-down, absurd way. So that is the most effective thing we can do as a city government. And then I want to go back to one more thing is, yeah, let's turn to each other as well. Because your city government is not going to be able to provide the same sort of safety and community that we can give each other. So that's also part of the solution.
Okay, well, let's move from a question that results from national policies to one that is really hyper-local and really focused on council. And this questioner puts it this way: city council members rarely respond to emails. What do you believe is your responsibility to respond directly to the public? So it's a good question for both incumbents and people who are seeking the office. Let's start at the other end with Michael.
Sure, Donna, where are you? Donna called me. I gave her an answer back. We're in communication. I'm a very active city council member, known for the amount of email I have. It's one thing I did as council president on 2 different occasions is I did an analysis of our email flow to and from city council members. Turns out I get twice as much email as other council members. I think in part because I send out a lot of mail. I do try to respond. Truthfully, I don't respond to every email, but I do read every email. From constituents. I think it's very important to respond to the email because I do direct people that that's the best way to reach me because I don't need to be there when the phone rings. And if you call my city council number, you're going to get a voicemail. There is no actual physical phone it can go to. You cannot reach me. So I give out my personal cell phone number. That's what I do with my constituents to make sure they can reach me. When you enter into this job, you give up a degree of privacy. And so my cell phone number is public because that, to me, comes with my job. And then there's just simply going about to various meetings. I serve the South Side, but I go to neighborhood association meetings all across the entire city because I actually am elected by the entire city and I serve the entire city. I go to meetings of the Chamber of Commerce, not because I'm running a business, but because that's an important community that I need to listen to. So I try to make myself as available as I possibly can. I've always done that from the beginning. Credit goes to Louise Bjornson, actually. I don't know if you remember Louise. She was known for going everywhere and being at every meeting and listening to every person. And I looked at that and I said, yep, that's what I'm going to do.
Andrew, how are you going to be responding to the public if you get this job?
Well, first of all, I have some concerns about the way we do public comment because I think that having public comment happen after the meeting is a very strange way to do things. On a previous city council I served on in Florida, the public comment always preceded the city council meeting. And we also had a practice there of inviting experts that were not necessarily the city staff to also make presentations to the council before we made any key decisions or key votes. And sometimes we got very valuable information by doing that. So I'd like to see an expansion of that. I don't believe that we need to go through endless, rants about vaccines and things of that kind. I don't believe that's a First Amendment requirement for the council. I do think we need to have it be focused on the issues that are coming up to the council or that at least have to do with city powers. But I think they need to come up before the council consideration rather than afterwards. So that's one thing. I've always answered my emails. I'm one of the few people I know of who picks up my phone on the first or second ring, and it very rarely goes through to voicemail, which is the norm these days. So I'm very easy to reach. The other thing is I'm somebody who believes in show and tell. So I will not, again, be sitting behind a dais as the only thing I do, but rather every day would be wanting to go around and actually see things firsthand. I've done, for instance, 4 ride-alongs because I wanted to know more about how the sheriff's office works. I wanted to know more about how Bellingham Police Department works and how fire and EMS works. But similarly, I've been having meetings with different organizations around town and with different, to connect on getting new views about housing. I spent the last 2 years having a series of meetings all around town with different groups to have a better sense of all the different perspectives on that. I've also committed to neighborhood associations that I will go and visit. I'm not going to wait till something comes up in city council. I'm going to go and visit so I'm informed before it comes up in city council. And I've also asked different city staff, I'd like to do the same thing there. Give me a heads up when something's going to be coming up so that I can sit down with you in your office and get your point of view. And so I can go out also and look at and consult all the other organizations and get maybe conflicting points of view, right? To be able to have a better overall picture when something comes up like that.
Okay. Carrie.
Yes. I, like Andrew, I'm a community member and not a sitting council member. I am the Silver Beach Neighborhood Association president, and one of the number one complaints I hear from my association members, and then also across committees or community, is that council members, except for Lisa Anderson, Michael Lilliquist, are not responsive. It's really difficult to get an email responded to. It's really difficult to get a phone call, and for a lot of people, it's really difficult to get an actual sit down for a lot of people. So things that I would like to see different is I'll do quarterly town halls for people. I already host meetings that are open to the public, but not everyone's excited to come and see me just as a community member. But as a council member, I definitely, quarterly town halls, I'd like to have a system put in place that we actually manage all the emails better. It's 2025, and we still have a database and approach to email as if it's the early 90s. And so simple ways on making it so that when you do email city council, you can get an automated response that can either direct you where you need to go, give you an answer if it's there, and then if not, you get a follow-up within a reasonable amount of time. So part of that is you will definitely get an answer from me within a reasonable amount of time. I also will be available. I already used my personal phone as my campaign number. I tried splitting them and it didn't last long, so my personal number's out there, and I'll keep being available to people that way. I also think it's really important to go into community. That's why I already, instead of saying that I'll do these things in the future, I've already been doing them. I go into low-income housing that's in with the community there. Go into different senior facilities. And also with city council, I don't agree with telling people what they can talk about, saying that vaccine's not a topic I'm interested in, so I don't want to hear about it either. I think it's really important to allow community members to have a voice, even if you don't agree as a council member.
Okay, Skip, you're on council. Do you answer your emails?
Beg pardon?
Do you answer your emails?
As much as possible, yes, I do. And I see that closing that communication loop as one that's very, very important. But I also see it as, in some ways, some of the emails I get are asking for some research that takes a while to get to. And so I just let them know, I have to do this, I have to talk to this person and that person, and here's the rules and regs, and so on. But I also take emails that come in from, let's say there's an issue on the council, and I get 50 emails about the issue. And what I do with those, well, let's say 30, is that I take each one, because they're just, they're issues that come in, and I take each one and download it to a Word file so I can study and look at what everyone is saying about the issue, and if I need to respond, I do. But it is very, very important to be able, from my point of view, to be able to respond in a way that educates the people that are sending them to me, and be able to have them feel like there is a response in a timely manner. So,
Leah, how would you respond to your constituents should you be elected?
Hello? Okay. I love that question so much. I have said here that I am a bit of a data nerd, but I would say that is counterbalanced by my deep love for community engagement. I started my first job after my undergrad was in Peace Corps. I was a Peace Corps volunteer, and that's where I fell in love with public health. and Central America, working with community to solve their problems. It wasn't that we were like these Americans and we've come to solve your problems. Oh no, we had a counterpart. We had an organization, we had nurses, we had people who were leaders in their community without official titles guiding our work. And that has been the core of my professional and personal life moving forward. And so I'm an epidemiologist, but I work in a process called assessment epidemiology, which is really starts with the quantitative data. We say, hey, this is what we're seeing about your community. These are people who are experiencing inequities and disparities. These are people across geographic regions, but also across populations who are experiencing inequities. I take that data and I don't stop there. I bring it to the community and I say, hey, community, what do you think about this? And they're like, oh, tell me more about this. And then I bring them more data. And then we're like, okay, so here's the data and here are the problems. What should we do about it? And I don't make that decision. We don't make those decisions in public health alone. We make that with community. They drive our priorities and they drive the policies that we make to address those issues that we see in the data. That's my training. It is core to everything that I do. I was the community engagement coordinator at the North Sound Accountable Community of Health for 5 counties in this region. I'm assessment epidemiology at the state, and so I work with our health improvement planning folks with community-based organizations. It's real hard to work with individuals at the state level, and so we work with our trusted partners, our equity commissions, our women's commissions, our LGBTQ+ commissions, folks like those who are deeply connected to the community to drive our policy making, because we know we can't do that at the state level ourselves. I am very smart, but I'm smart enough to know that I don't know everything. And like it's been said up here before, Bellingham is creative. There are so many creative, smart people in this city. I would be ridiculously silly to try to make a policy behind a dais on my own with just the input from staff. Our staff are brilliant. They're so smart, and there's so much intelligence and community and lived experience. So I would say that I love the technology solution. There's so much opportunity to use workflows to drive like email direction and where it goes and automatic replies. There's definitely a tech solution there for sure. I see opportunities to use AI to track our motions, to make it more, not our motions, but the ordinances we passed, the resolutions we passed, who voted on what. We don't really keep that anywhere, which is also a matter of public record, and you just gotta dig for it. One of my board members of the Dispute Resolution Center created an AI tool to track votes taken at school boards when school boards across the state we're trying to we're trying and working to create policies to oppress and disenfranchise children from the trans community. And she used an AI tool to track that and made it herself. And so I think that there's technology solutions that we're not using because we're used to doing things the same way. I definitely am a big fan of and would totally join a quarterly town hall, have open office hours, be there. I'm a millennial, so answering the phone is not my forte, but I would promise to work on that. But emails, I'm so much faster at, and texting, and just being out there and meeting people where they are, not just the people in my neighborhood.
Okay, let's hear from Holly. How do you handle communications from your constituents?
Great question, and I hope that the person that asked that question will find me after so I can learn more about what you're experiencing. I would say, first of all, we do get a lot of email as council members. Those emails often come into our group email, so it doesn't go to a specific council member. And so sometimes and we can't communicate with each other about responding to those emails. And so there is sometimes a little bit of maybe a difficulty or a challenge to make sure that emails get answered. But we approved, as a council, we approved hiring a communications position for the council, which was to in part address that email response issue and help coordinate that communication, because we're, as council members, aren't allowed to talk to each other as a group unless we are in the public. So so that is one answer to that. Often we get a lot of emails that are opinion emails or someone wanting to share an experience. I think if I am getting an email that is to me directly and asks a question or is looking for a response or information, those absolutely will get answered. if it is 50 emails about, something that we're voting on that's expressing an opinion about that, I'm not likely to answer those. But they are all read. I would say that all council members are very likely reading every single email because there's always some great information in those emails that help inform our decisions or help you share your experiences out in the community so that we know what's going on. Because we can't be everywhere at once. Although a lot of us try to be everywhere at once, we can't. And so it's really important that you share those experiences with us so that we know what's happening out in our city. And I think that one other point is that we as council members, we're 7 council members, and we have 3 staff members that we all share. If you're a council member in Seattle, you as an individual council member have 5 of your own staff, which sounds dreamy. But we share 3 staff members who do the best to cover all of our needs as a council. So, and I find that my favorite way to communicate with people that live in Bellingham is out at events like this. I think that any opportunity to meet face-to-face with somebody is so much more valuable than any other form of communication. If it's possible, I know that's not possible for everybody, but that is, if you see a council member out, we all experience getting approached at the grocery store. It's fine, you can do that. But neighborhood meetings, any other events, feel free. If you've got a question, approach your council member. We're used to it. We enjoy it. That's why we do this. But otherwise, if you're not getting your emails answered, I would like to hear more about that. So please share.
Okay. Time is flying. I'm going to turn this back to Ron.
Dean, I would just like to explain to any of our younger readers who may be joining the video version of this later that this email thing is this old technology that people used to use to talk to each other. And it's obviously very important. But I want to move on to some more important things if I can. Is that okay? Can I do the lightning round now? You will soon find out what the lightning round is. We have spent time on a lot of serious subjects here that are worthy of discussion. These are not really worthy of anything except giving people some insight into who you are as people and citizens. And I would remind you that you're not under oath, but most of these things are things that we can check, and we will. Yes, so keep that in mind, and there is a recording, okay? So what I'd like you to do is, I'm going to go through these really quickly. There's 15 questions here that could determine your fate as a candidate for the Bellingham City Council. And if you think that housing is a big issue, wait till you get to my first 2 lightning round questions. So I want you to raise your hand in response to these, and the first one is, do you own a cat? Raise your hand. Cat. Do you own a dog? Currently. Next one. Do you currently have the TikTok app installed on your phone? Yes or no? Raise your hand. Michael doesn't really know. He's going, I don't know, I got to check. He's got 675 apps on his phone. Okay, we got to keep moving here. Raise your hand. Raise your hand if you've personally successfully navigated the Holly Streak bike lanes on a bike. Question that. All right. A little quiz. All right. Raise your hand if you own or regularly drive an electric vehicle, and Andrew, you're exempt from this question. Raise your hand if you own or currently drive an electric vehicle. Nobody. Wow, all those chargers downtown. Raise your hand if you have a working natural gas stove, furnace, water heater, or other appliance in your home currently. All right. Raise your hand if you voted in all of the last 4 city elections. Okay, you check that out. Raise your hand if you've ever been arrested. Wow. Raise your hand if you have any outstanding warrants or Bellingham parking tickets. Currently, if you have any outstanding warrants or Bellingham parking tickets that are not paid. Wow, something should be done about that.
I know.
Raise your hand if you regularly use the city-mandated Food Plus recycling bin, and that means taking out to the street as scheduled. That's the one with the yellow lid. Okay. Raise your hand if you can tell the difference between a barred and a spotted owl. Oh, come on. There's no way. Okay. We'll check this out later. Raise your hand if you can name the current premier of British Columbia. Andrew? Very good. Very good. That's one. We're a border town. So raise your hand if you have, on 2 or more occasions in the past year, attended a service at a local church. A service at a local church on 2 or more occasions in the past year. Okay. Raise your hand if you're willing to go on the record right now about making pickleball a top 10 city priority. Only 2. Okay. It is a generational thing. All of the generations. And finally, not most importantly, but very important, raise your hand if you currently subscribe to a local newspaper. Okay. Okay.
Can we ask which one?
I'd like to ask which one, but I'm not going to go there because that would be unfair. Okay, so anybody that's listening at home, these are not critical questions, but enlightening, I think, in some ways. So thank you, everybody. Huh? Yeah, that was it. I can come up with some other ones. See, Michael was prepared for the library card question, and go ahead and tell me how you were going to answer that question.
60001942554.
I figured it was going to be too easy, so he had the number. Somebody can check the number? Somebody here from the library? I'd like to know if he just made that up. It sounded really similar to the one that you did say backstage. So anyway, we're running out of time. Where do we go from here, Dean? Do we want to wrap her up, or do you want to ask another question?
I think we have very little time left. I could ask another question. We'd have to keep the answers really, really short.
Maybe ask one and just have 2 candidates answer it, and then we'll...
Okay. Well, let's just say here, okay. Let's make a quick response here. This questioner says, Bellingham has a fantastic bike network. Do you think it works? And what will you do to expand it? Holly?
Yeah, we have an incredible bike network. I think that we can make it world class eventually. We have a plan for that. It's just a matter of implementing it.
Okay. Leah?
I would say yes, we have a plan. I would love to see our neighborhoods like King Mountain and Cordata more easily connected to the rest of the city, and so that folks can easily come to the city center. And I like to also see more bike paths around daycare centers and schools as well, just so that parents don't have to hop into the car to go take their kids to school. We can ride the bike together.
Skip?
Well, we do have a good bike network, an excellent bike network. We also have an excellent trail network, which I am more involved in. The one thing I like about our bike network is when we implement it, or at least some of the ones, that we implement them on a temporary basis to see if they work. And if they don't work, we modify. But the goal is to be able to get from one end of town to the other on a bicycle safely.
All right. Carrie?
So I would say no. That might not be a popular answer with it. I was born in Portland, grew up in Bellingham, but had divorced parents, and so I went back and forth. And so I'm thinking of Portland. As a kid with a bicycle and a pocket full of quarters, I got all over Portland and had, epic journeys as a kid. I actually grew up on off of Electric Avenue, and then recently I moved back there again 10 years later, and I was really disappointed to see problems that were there 40 years ago still existed, and that's a lack of connectivity throughout Ward 4. We have areas that do have better connectivity for bikes and trails, but Ward 4 has a lot of problems. Happy Valley has a lot of problems. We have right-of-ways that could be dedicated to bike lanes closer to, like similar to what Portland has, dedicated walking and bike paths that get you off traffic and connect you through the city. Electric Avenue still doesn't have any bike lanes, 35 miles an hour, no sidewalks. There's so many areas throughout Ward 4 that it's just not safe, and I'm constantly talking to people, especially on North Shore. We have a pinch point there that we've had 9 accidents. It's supposed to be 25 miles an hour. It's right across the street from a park, and that's one of the reasons why I'm running, is that we have some seriously neglected areas throughout town where we need to do better.
Andrew, you're a bike rider.
As somebody who bicycles everywhere and does not have a motor vehicle, I am very happy, obviously, with our greenways. They are fantastic. I love our over-the-water walkway and would like to see it extended to downtown. But when it comes to simply painting stripes in major arterials, that is very dangerous. You've got cars that are going 40, 50 miles per hour, regardless of what the speed is posted, like, for instance, on Fairhaven Parkway, and you've got a narrow little lane with just a stripe there. Very dangerous. Many people have been killed there, and when they're killed, that's just an accident, okay? That's not vehicular homicide. It's poor design. We should be making sure that speeds are lower throughout Bellingham, and particularly where there's an adjoining bike lane. But more generally, we need to have protected bike lanes. If we want to make it so that families can go bicycling, so they feel comfortable doing that, safe routes to school and so forth, we've got to go more Dutch, to put it bluntly, right? And there are other cities in America that have done that to a much greater extent than we have. I know it's a little bit more costly, but it's worth it, isn't it? It has to be part of that strategy. From what I said in my opening statement about, getting climate resilient, we're not going to do that unless more and more of our trips by more and more of the whole population, including women, children, and so forth, can do that with a real sense of safety.
Okay, Michael, last word.
Yes, thank you. It's a work in progress. I think it was in 2015 that I helped pass the Bellingham's first bicycle master plan. They wanted it to be a 20-year plan, and I said, no, it's a 10-year plan. Because I looked at the funding we had and the projects, and we did. We updated it 10 years early. It's a very successful plan, but Andrew and I agree on one thing, which is I've repeatedly said that paint alone is not enough to create genuine safety, that physically protected and buffered bike lanes are better. We do make larger buffers with paint, and they're marginally better than a single line, but Andrew is right. To create the sort of safety where I remember riding behind a little girl who crossed a lane she shouldn't have crossed, and it was scary, scary, scary. It's a work in progress. We have a really good, for someone like me, we have a fine bike lane, but bike network. With regard to the bike network, one of the things we do is we prioritize both equity and a network model, which means rather than complete, if we want to complete a section of a bike trail, it has greater value if it's connecting longer segments. What we're trying to do is create a complete network. So what segment we work on and prioritize next really has to take a network-wide look and also an equity lens, which is which communities are in greatest need and greatest deficit. So we're a work in progress.
Okay. Well, thank you. And what a great discussion tonight. And what a great audience. What great candidates. Thank you for joining us. We'd love to hear what you think about this program. And those of you who have registered your email address with us will be getting a link to a short survey where you can respond to it. So keep an eye on your inbox and be sure to do that. This town hall is free, and that's only possible because of the generous support we receive from our community. So thanks to all of you who subscribe. And I'll remind you all that the best way to support local newspapers is to subscribe to one. So I invite you to make an investment in journalism by buying a subscription, making a donation. If you're interested in chatting about that, our audience engagement editor, Alana Markham, will be outside to chat with you. We're dedicated to holding more and more events like this and getting out into the community to meet you. So watch the space, watch your email. We'll be having more. So I'd like to also thank Seaholm High School, Bellingham School District, especially Laura McGowan for all their help. But most importantly, I think thanks go to you, the candidates. You make extraordinary personal sacrifices to do this. And it's that dedication to public service that makes democracy work. So thank you for all you do. And thank all of you.
Dean, can I add a quick reminder? One, I am thrilled to learn that there seems to be consensus on the City Council that the protective plastic drinking straws along the bike lanes are not sufficient, but they are very, very visual. Yes. Secondly, I want to remind everybody here, we're very proud of our election coverage at CDN, and we consider it one of our core missions. And two big pieces of that in relation to our Citizens Agenda project, where we get feedback from all of you to ask questions of the candidates, which we have, will be coming out next week on Friday in our big voters guide, which is referred to in the newsroom among us older folks as the Sears Catalog special section, because it's very hefty. And we're very proud of it. It has issue stories, and it will also contain the endorsements of CDN's editorial board, which will begin appearing online on Monday. So look for those. And thank you for participating in all of that coverage.
Have a good night.